Today is April 28th.
2021.
Yep, 2021. My name is Joe Todd. This is an interview with Mark Holt in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Lieutenant Colonel Mark Holt, retired.
Colonel, yes.
Retired.
Where were you born?
Right here in Tulsa.
Tulsa.
St. John's Hospital, January the 6th of 1958.
January 6th, 1958.
Mm-hmm.
Who's your father?
Jack Holt. He's dead. He died 3 years ago at 94. Hope I make it that long.
And your mother?
Frances Holt.
What was her maiden name?
Tessaro. Tessaro. She spoke Italian and English.
Oh.
My father spoke German and Irish.
You go through school in Tulsa?
Went to school here, Catholic schools. Went to St. Francis Xavier at first and Lewis, and then they closed that school, and I went, in the fourth grade, I went to Marquette on 15th Street, the Parish School of Christ the King, and then I went to St. Bishop Kelly, right up the street here where I live.
Graduated what year?
1976. I was a bicentennial Kelly Comet.
Okay.
In that year, I was selected for, I tried to go to West Point, and I was selected. I was chosen to compete, but I was not selected. And instead of going to West Point, the head of the Tulsa Corps of Engineers, who was some Army colonel, said, "We're short on lieutenants. You need to go to Fort Knox, Kentucky for officer basic training, ROTC officer basic training. And if you survive that, we'll let you skip the first 2 years of ROTC." And I went, okay. So I did it. And I was a freshman at Oklahoma State University in engineering, but I was a junior in ROTC. And at the end of my freshman year, I was selected for Ranger School as an ROTC cadet. And I graduated Ranger Class Hotel 77.
Tell me about Ranger School.
Well, it was only 9 weeks long at the time. And unfortunately, I had an insane person for my Ranger TAC NCO, and he recycled me through the Benning phase. At the time, there were 3 phases. The Benning phase, which is 3 weeks long, the Mountain phase, which is up in Dahlonega, Georgia, in the Tennessee border of northern Georgia, 3 weeks long, and 3 weeks in the Eglin Air Force Base, East Bay Swamp. It's a good way to put it. But I had to go through the Benning phase twice. And it was, over half of us were eliminated from that school, but I was very good with a map and compass. I mean, I was very good. And it was just not a grand experience. I'm glad I went through it.
What type of training did you have at Ranger School?
Essentially, it was infantry training with a lot of emphasis on planning. Light infantry planning and weapons. And it was basically writing operations orders and taking turns leading your squad and then your platoon and then your company. And you had 5 leadership positions you were tasked on through the training, and you had to pass 4 of them. And it was a leadership school, and there was not a lot of sleep involved in this whole damn thing. And you had to be fairly tough, Joe. We ran everywhere. We didn't walk. There was no walking anywhere. We ran everywhere. And this was long ago, Joseph. But it was good training, and it's still ongoing, I believe, in the Army. But now they've added a 4th 3rd week period at Dugway Proving Ground in Utah, the desert phase. And I feel like I'm desert qualified at this point in time. As you know, since we both spent that half a year in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Yes. Oh my God.
So Ranger School lasted how long?
9, well for me it was 12 weeks long.
12 weeks.
Yeah,
Okay.
I got recycled through the Benning phase. It's kind of funny. this one sergeant wanted to kick me out because he said I failed the swim test. Well, they walk you off a 3-meter board with an M16 in your arms, and you've got a hood over your head, and they walk you to the edge of the board, and they just tell you to jump. Well, my sergeant walked me to the edge of the board, and he gave me a heel blow in my back with the heel of his hand, and I hit the water going, wow, and I let go of my rifle, and I went, sorry. I dived down to the bottom of the pool, 12 feet down, grabbed the weapon and came up and says, get the fuck out of the pool, Ranger, you're a no-go at this station. I went, I'm the best fucking swimmer in this company, Sergeant. I swam AAU for almost 6 years, and I competed against Mark Spitz. Bullshit. I got on the phone and called my mom and had her send I had a certificate from the AAU as a potential candidate for the Olympics in swimming. And they were going to kick me out until that showed up. And they called back to the AAU and they said, Holt's a fucking great swimmer. What are you talking about? And I was. So my TAC officer said, Holt, we were going to kick you out, but Sergeant Kendall is a little crazy, and he shouldn't have given you that heel blow in the back of your back. You should have just jumped. And if you had, there's no doubt you would have held onto your rifle and tread water for 5 minutes in your BDUs and boots and gotten out of there. I'll do it again if you want, sir. Nah, you swam against Mark Spitz. I went, yeah. Now, he beat my ass, but I qualified. He went on to Munich and won a whole bunch of medals. But that was kind of a shitty deal there at the Ranger School. But I got to go through I went through the bending phase, and shit, I'd already had it. And we were so sleepy, for instance, on our air support class where we had to learn how to call for airstrikes. I didn't remember that at all. And then I looked around, and half the guys in the class were doing this. They were nodding off from lack of sleep. I don't remember this class because, fuck, I was asleep during it. Oh, my God. And so we went. I did great the second time through there. I passed 2 leadership positions because I pretty much exactly knew what to do. They were only squad positions. I laid out a squad ambush, and we attacked these other Rangers, and it worked really well. And anyway, and then we got up to the mountains, and it was all climbing. My dad's a painting contractor. Yeah, no problem. We went through a week of mountain training, and climb that rope, no problem. Climb that, no problem. Tie these knots, I already know these knots, fine. We lost a couple guys up there in the mountains, though. 2 or 3 fell and broke their legs, and they couldn't go on. Then we had this ranger. His name was Fink. He was from Wets Point. Ranger Fink. And Joe, we were walking through the mountains at night, and he ran into a hornet's nest or a bee's nest. And it was as big as his head. And the bees attacked him at night and stung him in the face, and his face swelled up, and we had to carry him down off that mountain in a poncho. And I must admit, we drug his ass half the way because he was a big old boy. And we got him down and got him out. He had to go home. He couldn't compete. He had to go to the hospital. And then we had a couple of jumps there. I didn't get to jump because I wasn't jump qualified. I was supposed to go to Ranger School, then jump school for some scheduling problem, but instead of going to jump school, I went through Ranger School bending phase twice. Great. Well, we had a jump, and we lost 3 or 4 guys in those mountains that one night. They're not here. No, he landed. Oh, he's bad. His pelvis is broke, blah, blah, blah. Oh, man. So we lost a lot of guys until we got down to the swamp phase at Eglin. And we didn't lose too many. We lost. At that time, I really shone out in when they really wanted to fuck with one of the Rangers, every time, okay, that guy's the right op or Holt, they go, you got the compass, you're the point man, you do compass work. And I'd always get them there. And then, so there's a couple of Rangers instructors, they wanted to get rid of some guys, and so they go in the middle of the op order and go, no, let somebody else. Holt's been doing this too much. Let somebody else lead the platoon. fuck, we'd get out there and we'd be 4 or 5 miles off azimuth, and we'd be crossing a road we weren't supposed to be crossing. And I remember twice, I'd be kneeling at the back of the they put me in the back of the formation. I'd be looking at my map, and you know, we got 50 pounds on our back and we're slugging through this shit. And I'd just be shaking my head, and this one captain, he must have wanted to go home that night. We had a captain for every squad in Eglin. And he said, Holt, what's wrong? I said, sir, I've just shot an azimuth to that antenna over there, and I've shot an azimuth to that fucking some structure over there, and we're right here, and we're supposed to be right there, and we're going this way, and we should be going that way. He goes, well, you're right, Ranger. Shouldn't you? Don't you think you should tell somebody that? And I went, I just passed it up. And the other guys in my squad were going, fuck, pass that up, Holt. And so I went up there, and I just said, hey, and it was a West Point Ranger cadet. I said, hey, we are 4 miles off of our objective, and we need to turn 90 degrees and follow this one gravel road here for a while. And they wouldn't let us walk on the roads. Rangers don't walk on the roads. Well, that's a good idea in combat. A road's a fucking ambush site. So I got up there, and they made me run. He made that run, Ranger instructor. The Ranger instructor up front was giving that West Point cadet some shit. And so they made me run all the way up there with all my shit on. I sat down, okay. I can remember that guy's face, can't remember his name. We're here, we should be here, and we need to turn this way to make it to here. How do you know that? Well, because I shot an azimuth there, and I shot an azimuth there, and they meet over here, and we're nowhere near this objective, and brother, if we keep going, we're going to be further and further away from where we need to be. And so the other Ranger instructors went, good Ranger. You piece of worthless shit, you have led your platoon. If you call for fire right now, what would you call for? I mean, it's a fucking swamp. There's no real good terrain there. It's a fucking swamp. The only way I knew where we were was there's a fucking Air Force antenna over here, and there's a giant fucking Air Force building over here, and I was going, that ain't right. No, we're supposed to be in the middle of a swamp somewhere. Fuck. Anyway, I got out of there and went back to school. I was a senior in ROTC and a sophomore in mechanical engineering. And then I graduated. Jimmy Carter was president, and I was given a commission in the infantry. And
when were you commissioned?
1977.
1977.
Yep.
ROTC.
ROTC, Oklahoma State University. And took up a position as a training officer in a Army Reserve battalion right there in Stillwater that did infantry, AIT, and basic training. Mm-hmm. I was in a small group of 12 guys. 8 of them were drill sergeants. We had a drill sergeant, a supply sergeant, an admin sergeant, a first sergeant, and me. I was a second lieutenant company commander, which happens a lot in basic training units anyway. But I did that for, 4 years, and then, well, actually, I was there for a year, and then they picked up the TOW missile as a training. We had to learn to do it, but we didn't have any money. This was Carter. We didn't have any money to send anybody off to get trained, so I was shipped over to the Guard to a TOW light anti-tank battalion, which was in Kingfisher, Oklahoma. And my first actual summer camp was with the Guard, as I just got out of, hadn't even been to IOBC yet, but they taught us some TOW missile training at Ranger School. And I went up to the big red one. We had 16 Jeeps in that platoon. It was the 2nd of the 180th TOW Light Anti-Tank Battalion. And their lineage is from the 7th Cav. The 7th Cav, our famous Custer's Cavalry. Their job was to go to Germany and fire TOW missiles down the Autobahn and take out Russian tanks. That was their whole mission in life. But, you know, pulling the trigger on a TOW was a $4,000 exercise. But they had these really great simulators even back then. And you'd fire your simulator and this explosive charge would go off in the empty fiberglass tube. And as long as you kept your optical sight on the target, the TOW would go to it. Unless you fired over a barbed wire fence, or underneath the power line, or over a pond, in which case the TOW had a little wire that dragged the ground and which kind of told it where it was. But if it went over a barbed wire fence, it would just smash into the ground. Or if it went under a power line, the electricity would get fucked up and it'd just take off. Or you'd go over water and that thing would it'd slam it, it'd short out, slam it. There were things it couldn't do. It was designed for being fired down an Autobahn. And it worked really well at that. Or fired on a range that was mowed down at the big red one, or at Sill. You know, well, that did great. Went right to the target. And they even had big cardboard tanks on tracks that would actually move in front of you. It was the real thing. Made you feel very good. But I went up there with my 16 guys. I was supposed to have 44 guys in that platoon, okay? I had 16 guys in 1977. It was a hollow army. Nobody wanted to be in the army. The draft was over with. Vietnam was over with. Everyone was sick of war. And there weren't nobody was getting in ROTC except us poor boys that couldn't afford to go to college unless we got a little money from the government. Yeah, I'm going on and on, Joe, about my whole career here. When do you want me? You want me to keep going? I'll make it quicker.
Well, when did you join the 486th?
I don't know, but I was there quite a while, like 10 years. Mm-hmm. I was at a point in my career where I was a senior captain in the 95th Training Division here in the Reserve, Federal Reserve.
Now, did you go active duty after your ROTC?
No.
Okay.
I've only been active duty for war, Joe. That's
okay.
the only time I've been on active duty and training.
Okay.
I spent 5 years on active duty in Panama, Desert Storm, Operation Provide Comfort, Operation Joint Guard in Bosnia. And I went to El Salvador for a couple missions. And I got combat pay for going to El Salvador, except that we weren't at war, but they gave me combat pay, and I know why. Joe, don't ever go there. Have you ever noticed that? You're older, so they send you things. You want to go here? You want to go on a river trip down the Rhine? You want to go to Panama or Costa Rica? Do they ever ask you, do you want to go to El Salvador? Fucking don't.
Why?
It's overpopulated, and it is run by a bunch of Nazis, and there's what you would call crime there. They will kill you for your sneakers, your shoes. Okay, they really will, Joe. I know because I saw a body of a guy that was killed for his Nikes, an American. Okay? They don't give children shoes until they're like 12 or 13 years old. The bottom of these children's feet in El Salvador, they're like shoe leather. They're like leather. I mean it.
Okay, what did you do in the 486th when you joined? Were you a team leader?
I'm trying to remember. When I joined, I had a degree in engineering, so I fit an engineering profile that they needed. I was a public utilities officer, but I was in the direct support detachment as a team leader. Yes, had about, 5 or 6 people.
Okay. And
then that kind of kept going to war. It just interrupted my time.
What is civil affairs?
Civil affairs is when you seal the victory. Chairman Mao said a soldier must be politically activated. He must believe. And he swims in the sea of the people. He's a fish that swims in the sea of the people. I have Chairman Mao's little red book here. And he was right. If the people are not on your side, you fucking lose. They will shoot you in the back of the head. So civil affairs job is to keep the people on the side of the U.S. Army. So we do not cause a lot of collateral damage.
So you work with civilians.
We have to work with civilians. And honestly, our job is to speak the local language. You're a much better officer if you speak the local language. It's kind of my key there. I seem to be able to pick it up fast. And if you have to use interpreters, then your security is shit. And that's why we're losing in Afghanistan and Iraq. Our guys don't speak Arabic. The British Army figured that out 400 years ago. Their officers all speak the local language of wherever they're deployed to. But our job is to work with civilians. They used to call civil affairs units military government units. And that's sort of true because when it started in North Africa during World War II, our guys would flow through an area, shoot the shit out of it, then everything would be horribly destroyed in the rear. There'd be no government, there'd be no police, the water would be down, and the health system would be down. So they formed these military government units to manage the rear, to keep the people sedate, and we're sorry we blew up your town, but look, we ran the Germans and the Italians off. Aren't you happy? And we shipped them food. And because that's America's power in the world, Joe. Our power is our ability to create enormous amounts of food, and we can use that to feed people, either refugees or people whose villages we've just destroyed, to get them on our side. And that's, if you can feed them with a great big old bag of corn or Louisiana long grain rice, says right on there, from Louisiana, USA, enjoy your rice. Fuck, they like you.
Now, your summer camps with 486th, where'd you go?
Where did I go the first time?
I
kept going to Bad Kreuznach, and then they would send me to Worms in Mannheim, Ludwigshafen.
So you went to Germany.
I went to Germany. Yeah, I speak German. And I went there 3 times. It was really good missions. And then I had to go to Desert Storm. And of course, a German linguist, they wanted you to go to an Arabic country. It's an army snafu.
Where were you when Saddam invaded Kuwait? When you heard about this, what did you think?
Well, I immediately thought, being from Oklahoma, our petroleum supply is going to be disrupted. And there's no doubt we're going to let that happen because Kuwait is a hop, skip, and a jump from Saudi Arabia. And the only oil company in Saudi Arabia is Aramco, which is the Arab American oil company. And we're not going to let that fucking happen. So I immediately got some Arabic books and started training myself in Arabic. I knew it was going to happen. And then we kept getting these, you were there, Joe. We kept getting these, be prepared for a 1-year deployment. Be prepared for 180 days minimum. Your missions are canceled to Germany, blah, blah. Half the regular army soldiers in Germany are loading up their ship on boats to go to Saudi Arabia. Yeah.
So you were called up to go to
Desert Storm. 90.
What happened?
What happened? To me? Our commander was a bit of a communist, Siegfried Haidt, and his mission was deemed critical, mainly because he was absolutely fluent in German. So the 486 was not going to go here in Tulsa. But I volunteered to cross level and go with the 418th out of Belton, Missouri. And none of them spoke Arabic. And I mobilized with them and reported to them at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and we had 30 days there to get ready to go. And I remember my commander, Siegfried Haidt, came to see me at Fort Bragg. How you doing, Holt? I'm doing good. Well, I'm sorry you're going to have to die for your country. He literally said this. But they're not going to send this German boy to Saudi Arabia to die for oil with the Star of David branded on his forehead. I went, yes, sir. I'm not sure that's correct, but okay. Fuck, And then I studied Arabic for 30 days and uploaded about maybe 150, 200 words. Kept studying it for 6 months, got pretty good at it, I must admit. And then the 100-Hour War happened, and we flew in a C-5 Galaxy from Pope Air Force Base with our trucks. I don't know, 5 or 6 trucks in the belly of a Galaxy. And we flew to Saudi Arabia and unloaded at Al-Khobar and went to the towers there where the Americans, their back staging area was. And that night, I always remember this, that was the first, everyone was very worried about Saddam's nerve agent capabilities. And we were very worried about attacks by Scud missiles on the desalination plants. There were so many people in Saudi Arabia, they had to desalinate the ocean in order to make water. And Saddam was bright. He knew if he could take out those desalination plants, we'd all have to leave because there wasn't any water for us to be had. So we had an AWACS plane that was flying a racetrack along the Kuwait-Iraqi border, and it was feeding data to what's called a ground service module, a GSM. I know all this shit because I was in the artillery too. When I was with the 95th Division, I was in the infantry for 5 years. Then I got transferred into an artillery training battalion. I took that officer advanced course through the mail. That was tough. But the GSM, there was a Patriot missile battery that was aimed north at Iraq. And whenever Saddam would fire his Scuds up in the air, the AWACS would see it take off. They would radio back to Al-Khobar, and it would go, there were these big towers everywhere, and they went, Scud launch, Scud launch. And when that happened, buddy, you got into your rubber suit, your NBC gear, and put on your mask, and made sure you had your gas mask with the 3 atropine injectors hanging. And that was like the first night we were there, and I heard the Patriots fire. God, they were like 3 miles away, and it was like someone was blowing up a stick of dynamite next to your ear. It was so loud. And it went up, and that Scud came in, and it had like nothing but high explosive on it. The Scud blew up in front of it, and it shredded. The Patriot blew up in front of the Scud and shredded it as it came in and knocked it off course. It was heading for the desalination plant at Al-Khobar. But instead, it fell on this sheet metal warehouse out by the docks, and the engine fell into that sheet metal building out by the docks, and it killed 28 guys from the Pennsylvania Army Reserve. They were longshoremen. They were all Army longshoremen. They were unloading boats. The Scud came in, rolled down through there, killed 28 guys. That was the worst loss of American life in that whole war. Was, yeah, we saved the water plant and knocked that Scud into that warehouse full of American, and we didn't do it on purpose, but it was just a snafu. Situation normal, all fouled up. Okay, a couple days later, we moved out for the 1st Infantry Division.
Tapline Road.
Tapline Road. We drove up Tapline Road. That was about a 400-mile drive. I forget that, 500? I don't know. It was a long way, Joe. Got up there, and I got sent over to the DIVARTY, the Division Artillery Brigade.
But we switched.
We did?
Because you're going to be sent to aviation. I was going to be DIVARTY. I said,
I was going to be sent to the CAV unit, the CAV.
Yes. I said, hey, I'm aviation. Send me to aviation.
That's
send
true.
Holt to artillery.
That's true. I did have artillery training.
Yes.
And I must admit, I was conversant with that shit when they stuck me in the A-lock. But I got up there, and, we were about 2 weeks away from beginning to fire. And we were practicing. We had 157 self-propelled 155s. No. We had our normal complement of 155 millimeter howitzers, which was like 18 times 3, 54. But we had 157 because 7th Corps deployed out of Germany, brought all the Corps artillery with them, and gave them to the 1st Infantry Division as reinforcing fire, because that's where we're going to punch through Saddam's lines. So we were getting all this shit unloaded from the docks, shipped up. We had the division there, but we were waiting on 7th Corps to get their shit here and get about 800 truckloads of shells up there. But we also had about 97 MLRS launchers, the multiple launch rocket system. And that's my biggest memory of well, there's two memories I have. When for 2 weeks, we shelled the front lines. And we shelled the front lines and just...
Hello?
Joe is...
no, Gail,
Joe's
I'm
on
in
the
the middle of an interview.
Yeah, anyway,
Okay.
Joe is talking on the phone now. I hate cell phones.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, we were shelling, and my job at the time was kind of... They sent me some shit. I got it in here. I've got a pamphlet in here that we were shelling the front lines of the Iraqi forces for 2 weeks, and they were coming across. They were giving up. They were all reservists. The Iraqis shoved their reserve and guard units up there against the Americans, and then we got Saudi interpreters that were talking over the bullhorns with SIOP. Hey, you guys, why don't you just come over here? We'll feed you hot chicken meal once a day, and get to take a shower. And we got some nice tents you can sleep in. You don't sleep in those holes anymore. And it was kind of working. They were giving up already. But
Now,
not all.
weren't you almost attacked by the Arkansas?
I was getting that, Joe.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I wasn't almost attacked. Okay. When a U.S. Army division goes to war, it has to take all of its reserve units with it. And they have reserve artillery units that are assigned to the division. And in our case, actually this is a 7th Corps roundout unit, but it was assigned to the Big Red One. There was an artillery division that was supposed to have been firing 8-inch howitzers, because at the time, in 1991, the Army was had had the MLRS system since Reagan, okay, which was like 88, 87, they'd had the MLRS, but all reserve units had the 8-inch howitzer, which is a long-range cannon for general support, and the MLRS is general support. But its shells are very, very expensive. But the cool thing about an MLRS battalion, you go from a 500-man 8-inch howitzer battalion, which you got to have to hump those 200-pound shells around, to a 150-man MLRS battalion. So you shrink the number of artillery soldiers you need, and these big, long, 12-foot-long rockets are picked up by hydraulics arm and put in the launcher. And it's just so much easier than toting those 200-pound 8-inch shells around, which only cost about $200, and you fire these shells at these rockets that cost like $10,000, but you know, corporate America loves that.
Yes.
Anyway, when all these roundout units were being added, the Army, in its brilliant mind, decided to give all these 8-inch howitzer units brand new MLRS. They loaded them up onto the guys from the 39th Division that were supporting us. They were the Arkansas Guard, went down to Houston and loaded up all their munitions and their brand new MLRS tracks onto these boats, and off they went to Saudi Arabia to reinforce the 1st Infantry Division. And when I got there, they had come, they were already there, and every day they were firing 1 or 2 rounds just to feel out the, you know, they were training. They had like 2 weeks to train. The good thing about it is it's a 34-step process to fire an 8-inch howitzer. It's a 5-step process to fire an MLRS. It's pretty simple to use. Any kid that can do a computer can do this. But the problem is it's all computerized. So, and we were worried about, Saddam had an MLRS system himself. We were really worried about that. So DeVarty headquarters had the counter battery radars up. We were trying to find his MLRS, because if he'd fired an MLRS with 800 pounds of nerve agent on it, he could have taken out a lot of people. And we want to take the first mission of the field artillery is counter battery fire. You got to take out the enemy's artillery. So we're sitting here, and my job at the time was, okay, yeah, this leaflet will be fine. We shell that area, yeah. It doesn't seem to have any pipeline terminals or any. There doesn't seem to be any people. There's no villages out there. Yeah, we got to sign this firing order. Okay, fine. That was my job until they decided they didn't need me to do that. So there were 4 of us. We had 2 men on the day shift, 2 men on the night shift, and they decided to make us local purchase because I seemed to be able to speak some Arabic. And they had this E6 who was running into town getting in trouble, wasting money. And we had about a 60-mile drive to the nearest city of Hafr al-Batin. There was a General Motors dealership there, of all things. And all these Humvees they had ran on 6.2-liter diesels, just like the fucking pickup trucks we had. But so one day, we took off for local purchase, and I left my lieutenant and one of my other sergeants at a 1-man CA and 1-man CA at night shift. The other CA went in town to do local purchase, which was a good decision by the Davarti commander. So Faniff and I went into town. I think we bought some fuel injectors that day for 6.2-liter diesel engines. Just as we're coming back into the Davarti headquarters, which is like 800 people all spread out over this huge area, and they've got these semi-tractor trailer platforms that have these huge antennas up. They're all looking for these incoming rounds. This shit comes down from out of the sky, and it looks like a rocket. And Faniff and I were about a mile away from the perimeter, and it just burst over the perimeter and just showered Davarti with these plastic pellets, which was, and sent 50 people to the hospital. Just as we were pulling up, we were picking up bodies, and one of my guys, I forget his name, is a black sergeant. He got a piece of shrapnel in his ass, and we all had our pressure dressing. We punched it on him and put him in a poncho and humped him over to the aid station. And he had been asleep in his tent when it was an MLRS round that was going south, not north towards the Iraqi. It came back at us. And I thought, man, the Iraqis are shelling us with their MLRS. So we ran over to the S. We got him in there, and we ran over the fuel injectors. So I reported into the A-lock, and I had a little bitty corner with a phone, just like this. It had a little bitty phone on it, and me and the S4 shared this phone. And the S4, he was distributing my fuel injectors to the rest of Davarti, and I was sitting there by the phone, and it rang. And I picked it up. I went Davarti S4, S5, and he goes, well, this is somebody, I forget his name, said, why, we're firing that new MLRS you gave us, and for some goddamn reason the thing rotated south instead of north. We had a launch excursion. We stopped it. I think we only fired 2. Pretty sure it might have landed somewhere in your area, boys. And I went, and the guys were, the A-lock colonels were running around going, where the fuck did that come from? That wasn't on the radar. Are they jamming our radars? You, SIGINT, are they jamming our shit? No, I don't think so. We're getting good. It's like they fired that mortar last night. They got this 100mm mortar they were firing. They had it on the back of a Toyota. It was like frontline artillery for them. But it worked. I mean, they'd shell us. Nobody's getting hurt, though, but fuck. It was a computer ballistic gunnery error. And they went regular Army. I said, battle captain. They were all going, where the fuck did that come? Saddam's got some secret weapon that he can fire at us with MLRS now. We're all in danger. And I went, battle captain, what do you want, fucking reservist? I went, I know where that came from. It got real quiet in the A-lock. You better talk to this guy from your 39th Infantry Division General Support Artillery Roundup Brigade. What? Yeah, they had a launch excursion. We just fired it ourselves. Here. What? Yeah, here's the phone. Give me that phone. So he sat down where I was. He went, really? Really? You fighters quit firing right now. All your fire missions are done for the day. And he ran over to the Divardi commanders. They called for a helicopter, and it came. They flew over there, and they relieved everybody in that command structure. And they said, fucking reservists about to kill us all. But what it was the MLRS that the Big Red One had, they've had since the time of Reagan. Because the Big Red One always gets the best up front. All right. And every 6 months, SILP would put out a software patch for their battery control system for the MLRS. It had been patched over and patched over and patched over. Well, the software on the brand new MLRS that the 39th had never been patched over. And there are 6,400 points in a circle in the artillery. It's actually trigonometry. There are 2 pi radians in a circle, which would be 3.14 pi times 2, which would be, there are 2 pi radians in a circle. In the Army, they changed it to 6,400 to do the trig, to do the math for artillery ballistic gunnery calculations. And what happened was there was a storage problem in these little bitty Army computers. To have that many points in the computer, they did this shifting thing. Some programmer did this. Was zero, up here was 0, 0, 0, 4 mils, 4 zeros meant due north. And then 3200 meant due south. And then 3200 went all the way up to 6400, which was 00 itself again. And anyway, for some godforsaken reason, and this took 2 weeks to figure out, when the computer would load a due north mission, it would get some kind of error between 6400 and 00 because they both overlaid each other. So for some reason, they made due south 3200 and 0000. The computer thought it was the same thing. And they very rarely shoot 00. Well, they were shooting 0017, 0107 over here at 6322. But that one day, that one unit got a mission on 0000. And the computer loaded 3200. And the launcher turned from due north to due south and launched a 2-pack of missiles at Divardi fucking headquarters, the Big Red One, which we were due south of them. Holy shit, you know? And I was in town buying fuel injectors, and we got back and we watched this shit explode over Divardi as we got there, and we ran to our tent, and Sergeant had a hole in his butt. The MLRS hurts people more than it does kill them. It explodes and shoots fragments of this super hard plastic into the enemy. It's better to wound someone than to kill them, really. It really is, because they got to run around and do what we were doing, burn up medicine and send them back to the rear to get taken care of. You know, it's just better. In fact, Chairman Mao said, it's better to wound the white man than to kill him. Just keep wounding him. Yeah, he was smarter than us. But anyway, yeah, I nearly got killed by the Arkansas Army National Guard. I was not killed by them, but one of my guys was hurt pretty bad. But they sent his ass back to Kuwait, and he was a good troop. He was, I forget what he did. I think it was a janitor or something. He was an E4, E5. I think he made E6 out of his experience with us, but he got the Purple Heart, and he fucking deserved it, I'll tell you that. He lost a hunk out of his butt, probably half as big as my fist. Shit, we had 4 pressure dressings on that tied down. He was still bleeding. Fuck, I didn't have a hemostat, and so we got his ass over. And luckily, at Divardi, we had a real doctor there. We had one MD. Now, he was kind of overwhelmed at the time, but he looked at our guy and said, get him inside and on the table now. And we had enough people volunteering to give him blood. He wasn't my blood type. I'm A positive, and he was O something. I would have killed him to have my blood. But I went through the rest of the war with a 3-man team.
So, the Grand War starts, what do you do?
Well, essentially, we never stopped moving except for from about 2 in the morning to about 5 in the morning. And we ran through a lot of dead Iraqis. And I've been in the Army 11 years and never seen a dead soldier until I was in Desert Storm. Where the hell is that dead dude? There he is. It's my first dead soldier. Now look at the terrain, Joe. Look at the dirt, the sand. I mean, there's this dead Iraqi just laying there, and the S4 liked us. We went into town and buy stuff, and when we start maneuvering, the S4 decided he wanted to ride in our truck. And I was missing a man, so I put him in my truck, and we're driving. Here's the S4 of the 1st Infantry Division Artillery Brigade and me riding around this truck. And we were taught to follow the tire tracks of the track in front of us because we kept running through munitions just sticking up out of the fucking ground. And the goddamn helicopters had come through that area where that dead man was. Just before we got to him, there were all these 75mm rockets just sticking in the ground. They didn't explode, Joe. They had fired, this Cobra had fired into the sand, and these rockets were just sticking in the ground. And I went, were the fuses not set? Are they not armed? What the fuck? And then all of a sudden we ran. There was a guy who was dead in front of him, but we were kept rolling. And I leaned over the S4 shoulder there and I said, you know, I've been in the Army 11 years. That's my first dead enemy soldier I've ever seen. And I went, well, okay. So he looked at me and he goes, you know, I've been in the Army 12 years, and that's the first dead enemy soldier. I've been in the regular Army. That's the first one I've ever seen. Anyway, this is Kuwait. Notice the wells are all on fire here. Mm-hmm. These are the fly swatters up that allowed us to converse with all the division artillery units. And for the 100-hour war, we would have a staff meeting on the run in the A-Lock, and we were only firing MLRS, and we were firing them. You could see at night. You could watch the MLRS take off, and you knew which way you were going because, yeah, we're going that way. You could see they're going that. We're pounding the fuckers in front of us, and then, but the 100-hour war lasted 100 hours. We didn't sleep. I bet we only slept 10 hours in that time. I dug probably 6 holes in that. Whenever we stopped, I would dig a fucking hole. Everybody else did too. They weren't told to. We just fucking did it. Okay? Nobody put up tents. And you get out and you slept in your NBC suit. You slept in that fucking Mop 4 suit, and in the morning you get up and you have to take a shit. So when it's dark, you just dropped all your trout and hang on to the front bumper of your truck and crapped off the front bumper of your truck and get in and what's the mission? Where are we going today? Well, we're going that azimuth, and we're going to hit the Tawakalna Brigade. And I go, okay, let's go. The Tawakalna is a Republican Guards Brigade.
What's the name of it?
Tawakalna.
Tawa.
Tawa, T-A-W-A, Q-U-A-L-N-A. Tawakalna. And we hit them in about the 90th hour of the 100-hour war, and we just wasted those motherfuckers. I'm sorry. I remember we just sat there. We actually had time to drop spade on the 155s and fire about half of their basic load. And you have to see a mech infantry division on the ground moving so many vehicles. And the artillery, you know, there's semi-tractor trailers behind each one of these cannons just loaded with shells. These ordnance guys, you know, they're brave. They're driving those shells around. And we shelled the shit out of the Talcahunas, and they pulled off. They pulled out of the. We made it to the north. Went 187 miles in 100 hours, and they pulled across the river into northern, southern. That wasn't a river; it was a border. There was a river north of them. They actually pulled. Most of their mech units went on the other side of that river just because it was a better fortified position. But it was about 20 miles north of the Kuwait-Iraqi border, the northern border there. And you know, Saddam was brilliant in some ways. You see all those fires? He lit all those on fire. You know why he did that, Joe?
No, why?
Okay. Most of our targeting systems on our tanks, on the tow missile, is a laser. And if that smoke is in between, or even in the helicopters, if that smoke is in between you and the target, your laser don't work. That smoke attenuates lasers. Hell, the Big Red One had a 12, they had these M113 APC MBC units. Their job in Desert Storm was to create smoke. We didn't ever do it, but they were there, and they were kind of attached to DeVarty on one side because, well, we had a couple of special units in DeVarty. We had 40 atomic 8-inch shells. You know, we had them. They were right there with us, Joe. And they wanted to be able to smoke them out if they could, and they wanted to be able to deploy those guys if we got nerve agent attacks so they could find out where the nerve agent was coming from. Did you remember when they blew up that artillery unit? There was an artillery depot that we passed on about the 25th hour of the 100-hour war, and you know, here's all these shells laying around, and General, I forget, Tommy Rames, was it Rames who was the commander of the Big Red One?
General Rames, yes.
He decided to blow that shit up. Probably a good idea, but unfortunately there were several thousand nerve agent shells in there. And all of a sudden, after he blew that shit up, half of the automatic chemical agent alarms in the Big Red One started going off because we gassed ourselves, Joe. And you and I were taking that nerve agent antidote. I guess it worked because we're both here. Yeah. And you and I for sure got a lung full of that shit. And you know, it doesn't take much nerve agent to kill a guy. But that was stupid. I mean, it was a good idea. You don't want that ordnance just laying around out there. Get rid of it, blow it up. And the engineers were going to have fun blowing it up, and they did. And thank God they were all taking that nerve agent antidote, man. And that was one of the earlier snafus. And I spent the rest of that time, well, prisoners. Okay. That was about 50 hours into the war. I got these 5 guys. And then I had there was another group of them that showed up. And I was the only guy that spoke Arabic, so they wanted me to go out there and talk to them. All I could figure out was they were Dababa Junud, Dababa. Dababa means tank in Arabic, and Junud means soldier. Yes, you're tank soldiers. And I could tell them, Al-Harab Aksir, the war is over. Roya al-Bayt, go home. They went, yes. Here's, and I hand them a bottle of water. Moya, Inta, water for you. Yes. And at this time, what do we do with these prisoners? That's a good question. And the divisions, I don't know if I should tell you this. Anyway, they called the division, and the S2 division and the S3 made it, or the G3, they made a decision. They just said, we don't have anywhere to keep them. We're moving on. Tell them to go north, go home. Roya al-Sharq, go north. Al-Bayt, home. And off they went with free water from the American Army. They didn't have any weapons. Smart for them. Now, so I spent about we set up at about mile marker 90. We set up a prisoner collection point. Corps did it or Division did it. I don't know who did it. It was mostly run by Saudis. I made about 5 trips down there with. We had I couldn't carry them all in my pickups. Didn't want to really. And no, we only went there 3 times. But they gave me some Minnesota National Guardsmen who were in transportation unit assigned to DeVarty, and they had an S&P. They had a flatbed with plywood walls on it, and you could get about 100 men on there, and then we would turn around and take them. Well, when we got to here, it was about 90 miles to back there.
That's in northern Kuwait.
Yes. And this would be somewhere set up halfway. This is the ALOC, the Administrative Logistics Center. It's got these antennas up and had a little office in the back ass end of this with the S4. And you know,
That's the that's the ALOC.
The Administrative Logistics Operations Center. Okay. Well, so all over Division, people were just giving up in front of us, and they were herding them back and herding them back. And after a while, they just keep transferring, and the artillery is always behind the infantry in the Army. So in my sector, because I'm in DeVarty, I'm behind the direct support artillery units. Everybody else didn't want to mess with them, so we got these civil affairs guys. Give them a truck, and hey, Holt speaks some Arabic. Oh, fuck, great. Okay, I say, what was it? 1-8. It's funny. It's a funny Arabic word. It's actually English. letter 8. Well, before the Americans were in the Middle East, the British were there, and they thought they owned it. And they had this truck, which was like their deuce and a half, called the M18. They called it a 1-8. Get the fucking 1-8. And so the Arabs would listen to the British soldiers, and they go, that word in English means truck, 1-8. And that's what it means in Arabic today. 1-8 means truck. So we had this big-ass truck, and I could point at it and go, 1-8. You guys get on the truck. And we made 3 runs back to the collection point, where the Saudis would take them off our truck, put them on their trucks, and take them back to the EPW camps along Tapline Road. And I had an incident. I ain't going to talk about that. That's bad. Yeah, I don't want to talk about that.
Okay.
Somebody had to die. I don't want to talk about it. Anyway.
You called me, said, meet me. So I met you and said, we have some Egyptians up here.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yes. Okay, well, that was when we were, that was when we were here.
In northern Kuwait.
We made it to 187 miles, Joe. We had to stop. You know why we had to stop? We were out of fuel. We're out of fucking fuel. It takes 187 miles for the Mechanized Infantry Division. The range of an M1 Abrams tank in the sand is 97 miles. And it needs 425 gallons of kerosene to go 97 miles in the sand. Every armored battalion and Bradley battalion carries 1 upload of fuel, organic, into the battalion. We had to stop there. We could have kept going, but we didn't have any fuel. We had to stop right the fuck there. Well,
that's the Routhatton oil field back there.
Yeah, it is. Ruhaila. And 800 wells were burning there. And we cut off Kuwait, and the Iraqis ran out of there when they heard us coming. So at this point in time, we had taken Kuwait back. Now, Saddam knew he had lost at that point in time. In part of the 7th Corps, there were 2 Egyptian armored brigades and a Syrian armored brigade that were going to help the king protect the holy places, okay? The Egyptians are the Mexicans of the Middle East. They use them in construction. They use them as house cleaners. Saddam fired them all. When he got his ass kicked out of Kuwait, he fired all the Egyptians. You fuckers go home. So they started walking down this road, which was the paved road between Basra and Kuwait City. And they started showing up at our tents going, Allah Baja, no, Amarichki, no, la la la, no. Anyway, I had about 50 of them. Somebody called me up from one of our forward division artillery supporting battalions. We got like 100 Egyptians here. What the fuck? What are we going to do with them? I think they're Egyptians. They showed us a passport. So I went, yeah, they were Egyptian. And they had been working. And Saddam is letting us all go. And there were women there and children. So I put up my tent and I just said, I talked to the Vardy commander. I said, sir, we've got civilians and we need to get them out of here. And I'm collecting them. I've got 4 pickup trucks and we're going to go to Kuwait City and turn them over to the resistance or somebody. Just get them out of our sector. And he said, get them the fuck out of my sector. Get those civilians out of here. That's your job. Okay. So we drove down the road. Did you go with me on that?
Yes.
You went with me on that. That's right. I remember now.
Yes.
And I had one interpreter
because you stopped because your front wheel drove into a bomb crater.
Yeah.
Because we couldn't leave because a little girl had broken her arm.
That's right.
And it was about 10 o'clock at night before we left. So we were going through at night.
That's right. It was dark. I remember that.
Yes.
And we had the Kuwaiti interpreter with us. And the Kuwaiti interpreter wanted to see how his mom and dad were. He was in the American Army going to the university.
I had Abdullah was my interpreter with me and you had yours.
Yeah. And they all wanted to get the Egyptians out of there. They did.
Because we, the spotlight and the rifles, and then I love George Bush, God bless America, the spotlight and everything.
Remember we went down to, we got the kids, we got the Egyptians down into downtown Kuwait City, and we went to my interpreter's dad's house.
Well, first we drove into a firefight.
I don't remember that so
I kept up the Daily Journal because we drove up and this where the Egyptians lived, there's a firefight, and I had the American flag on my truck. And there were some resistance members there.
It was the resistance firing not at us. They were firing at what they thought were Iraqi loyalists.
And Palestinians joined the Iraqis. Palestinians in Kuwait joined with the Iraqis.
They are, and the resistance took them out to the edge of town and shot them all.
And then they said, take them to the Al-Sur prison. That's where we took them to the Al-Sur prison.
Yep.
And we met the Kuwaiti resistance, and they took the Egyptians.
And they were very happy to see us. Yes. They really were.
And then we went to the interpreter's office.
Yeah, but we weren't sure. I remember that was kind of tense when he knocked on the front door. We were all covering him from behind our trucks.
Now you went to your interpreter's home, I went to my interpreter's
That's
home.
right. Well, we didn't know. We took him home, and they took us into their home.
We were not supposed to do that. We were supposed to go straight back.
I know, but shit. You got a little boy comes halfway around the world to risk his life for you.
Well, he wanted to see his family.
Well, yeah. And, that didn't take too long. We made friends with the resistance, and we figured out where they wanted us to keep bringing. We initialized the flow of Egyptian refugees into Kuwait at the end of the main maneuver, the 100-Hour War, and I remember we brought a load down there, and then we came back, and then that regular Army G5 showed up, and
Major Jorgensen.
Yeah, and he wanted to go. And so we loaded up we had 6 pickup truck loads of Egyptians. Off we went to the Al-Sur prison, and there was we met with one of the G5 and me, and I think you, and we met with the Al-Sur Kuwaiti, the Kuwaiti resistance weenie.
Colonel Mohammed Al-Fadari.
Yeah, and he brought out a bottle of whiskey, and he poured us all a drink, and he said, let's all drink to running Saddam out of my country. And that regular army fuck said, no, we cannot drink your liquor. And I had that thing in my hand, and I went, here we are on the other side of the planet, and the man is offering us his hospitality against his religion because he wanted to compliment us, because he appreciated us. And these things are going through my mind, and none of you reservists drink that shit. And I was like, okay. I said, Ana muta'asif. And the guy spoke English. He went, I understand. I said, I'm sorry. La alcohol, no alcohol. Yeah. I appreciate you. I really did. I fucking appreciated him so much. But so we turned around and went back. And made about 4 or 5 trips down there. And then that big black captain kind of took that over. I forget who he was assigned to. He was had a really rugged face. Dark skinned. I mean dark as your hat. I forget.
Starts with a G.
Yeah.
Gaff.
I think so. He took over that movement. I took my tents down. He put his tents up. And his job was to move the Egyptians down there. But on the way back one day, I stopped at that tank and pulled that out of there. Anyway. So that was, then for about the Devarti got a mission to move. So they got some guidance from the State Department, and they liked what we were doing moving the Egyptians down there, but they wanted Devarti to move up closer to that river so we could reach almost.
Is that the Tigris or Euphrates?
One of those. Yeah. I think they both are so close at that point in time.
Yeah.
But it's weird because there's all this desert. 40 miles north of here, they're growing rice. You know? I was supposed to be the public utility officer of Basra. That was, if this had all worked the way it was supposed to, we were supposed to smash in, take southern Iraq, take Baghdad, take Basra, but Basra's right on the fucking Iranian border. Yes. And I was supposed to be the public utilities officer in Basra. I remember I was studying maps of that whole area trying to figure out Basra. But that was pretty much my whole experience in the... I only had to shoot one guy. I don't want to talk about that, but he was trouble. He would have been trouble, and I'm not really sure if I killed him.
Was he Iraqi?
He was an Iraqi. We were loading a truck full of Iraqi POWs, and it was just my 2 pickup trucks and 2 Minnesota guardsmen driving an S&P and about 85 or 50 Iraqis. There were like 4 CA guys, 2 transportation guys, and 80 Iraqis. And this one motherfucker got up on the truck and he started shouting, there's 80 of us and 6 of them. I got that, and the rest of it I couldn't understand, but some of the people were going, we can kill the Americans and take their vehicles and drive home. And I just said, take him out. And we all just shot him right there. And everybody else got on the truck, though. Mm-hmm. No. Yeah, so be it.
And then we were getting ready to go home, but...
Ha! So, you were getting ready to go home, but for about another 2 months, we just kept dancing around in the fucking desert. And Corps wasn't supporting us for about a month and a half, 2 months. Couldn't figure out, are we going on to Baghdad, or are we going to stay here and secure the North Kuwaiti border? What the fuck? In that 2-month period, Saddam pulled half of the Republican Guard out of the Kuwait-Iraqi border and sent them up there to northern Iraq, and they started pounding the shit out of the Kurds.
Because the Kurds had an uprising.
Well, the Kurds had an uprising that our special forces armed and said, we will protect you forever, and this will be Kurdistan. And lied to them. And the Kurd had an uprising, but Saddam went up there and started slaughtering them sons of bitches. He'd been good to them. Really, in a relative sense, in all the countries that the Kurds live in, the Iraqi, even the Iraqi where the Kurds speak Farsi. And in northern Iraq, the Kurds had to speak Farsi and Arabic. And in Turkey, they had to speak Turkish and Kurdish. There's a lot of Kurds. Turkey is 35% Kurdish, okay? And they've been fighting a mild civil war against the Turks for 50 years.
Are you familiar with Woodrow Wilson's 14 points? World War
I've
I?
heard of it. I am not
Point
familiar
number
with it.
11 was the formation of Kurdistan as an independent nation.
I didn't know that.
But Ataturk stopped that when he created Turkey.
Turks are vicious.
Yes.
Arabs are vicious. And Kurds are Caucasians. They're not Semites. They're not. They're Caucasians. They're not Semites. But anyway, Saddam, back to where we were and I was, we were dancing around the desert and we heard the Kurds were leaving northern Iraq, going to Iran and going to Turkey. And Turkey is the biggest army in NATO, the biggest land army. And we got pulled. The division was ordered to leave. I think that was a State Department move. I don't know why we pulled out of there. I know it would have been difficult for us to continue on. We were at the end of a long supply chain. It was a mechanized unit. And we need a lot, and the world needed the fires put out in Kuwait to stabilize the supply of oil, and it was an environmental catastrophe. So our State Department, I believe, made the deal that if we pull the Americans and the Syrians and the Egyptians and the Brits out of your country, Saddam, will you quit butchering Kurds? And we pulled out. And I believe he'd ran 1.5 million of them off. Well, there's none left to butcher, so fuck them. So that's when we got the mission. We pulled out. I went back. I remember they sent me back early, about 4 weeks early, and I was supposed to help prepare the reception area for Vardy, which they gave us like 2 S&P loads of tents to put up. And I went into town with my $50,000 worth of Saudi riyals, and I bought carpet for the floor of the tents. And I kind of got into a little bit of trouble about that, but I ran out of money at that point in time. And we put up like 20 tents, and we built a rock. I bought some white paint too. We built a rock thing you could see from the air. It was as big as this house. It was just rocks. It said, Big Red 1, right here, Vardy. Painted it white so it could be seen from the air. Don't shoot us. Okay. We were like, we were outside Hafar el Batin, about 20 miles. While I was there, we put up those tents and went into town to do a little local purchase just for us there at the rear. And these Arabs kept coming out to us at night, and they brought us candy and stuff, and they were trying to sell us, you know, magazines and shit. And I said, la, Bas Americhki Hena, only Americans here. Shukran, go, thank you, no, go away. I sat there, kept practicing my Arabic, because about that time we got word that we're going to go to northern Iraq.
You know why we went to northern Iraq?
Yeah, to get the Kurds out of Turkey and Iran.
Colonel Ahrens asked to bring another unit over, and they said, no, that'll take 30 days, we'll have 1 million Kurds that are dead. So you're going north.
You're going. Well, turned out to be a good decision. Because we were all pretty tough from living in that desert for about half a year, Joe. And some of us spoke a little Arabic by then, and we could speak to those fucks.
So what'd you do in northern Iraq?
Northern Iraq, I was with the 418th CA Brigade in Camp 1. And we went, it was in a tomato field. The Arabic word for tomato is banadura. And my mission there was a labor administrator. And I hired linguists out of the Kuwaiti population that went from 0 to 35,000 in about a month. Mm-hmm. And I assigned linguists, whoever was there. I never knew who was going to show up for work every morning. I've got a picture of it back here. I don't know if you want to bring your camera back here. I've got a big shot of... I'll show you. Come here, I'll show you something, Joe.
Yeah.
This is pretty good.
Yeah. Let me,
Kind of made a photo of this. This is... I built this. Where you're stepping, I built all this.
Okay.
That's what I did in northern Iraq every morning.
Yes.
And my sergeant was on top of the truck, and I was writing everybody's name down, and guys were waiting. I was said, you will go with the food compound, you will go to sub camp 3. We had 5 sub camps. And then you will go to the baby wellness clinic, and you will go to, we had like 8 places they would go.
And that guy's Peshmerga.
He's Peshmerga, the soldier of death. He let me hold on to his SKS, and he had a grenade right there, and that's about all he had for gear. And this is the dead soldier, my first dead soldier, and that's me picking up my first crew of POWs. Anyway, that's what we did.
Yep.
Northern Iraq. That was a good mission, Joe. And I should have, you know, I was really missing my children and my wife. You know, that was about, what was that, about 6, 7 months into it. If I'd have stayed in northern Iraq, I believe I was asked to stay by somebody. Who was that other anthropologist? He was a lieutenant colonel.
Was it Epstein?
Epstein. Epstein asked me to stay.
Yes.
In northern Iraq. And
I stayed.
I know, I remember you stayed.
I was there 15 months.
I know, I was only there for 7 months, but I'll tell you, in a lot of my wish I had a moments, I wished I'd stayed inside of northern Iraq with you.
Tell me about building camp number 3. We had to build a new camp.
Was that number 3?
Yes. They had 1 and 2, and they had to build another camp. And
there was a problem with latrine cleaning. Couldn't get these fucking Arabs to shit in the hole. And, you know, it was a damn mess all the time.
They had never seen a latrine.
Well, I wouldn't say that, Joe. We saw some shitters in Turkey.
Yeah.
And I actually saw some, in some of the housing, they had some kind of plumbing in there. But as a hole, it was just a tile floor with a hole in it that some of them may not have. But I remember there was a problem. The Dutch engineers couldn't get these sons of bitches to clean. And I think we held off the food for a couple of days until there was a food riot, I remember, because they wouldn't clean the latrines. And the kids wouldn't go in. The kids were scared to go in there. And they would just take a shit around the perimeter of the outside latrines. God damn it, that was going to cause diphtheria and typhus and every other disease known to man. And they had to clean that up, and they didn't want to clean it up. And they said, well, you're not going to get any food. And then there was a riot. Yeah. Oh, well.
Because we had to set up the tents and the zozams and all that in the camp number. We had 25,000 Kurds in camp number 3.
Was that how much? I thought it was 35, but okay, maybe it was 25. It was a lot. It was a lot of Kurds.
5 villages, 5,000 each village. The Spanish, Italian, French, Dutch.
Each of the NATO forces sent us a battalion for security in each of the sub villages,
Yes.
And we had a civil affairs guy there with each of the sub village mayors, and that changed all the time, that they were coming and going. But we weren't there very long, and then they all came back home pretty fast on a relative scale. Our civil affairs brigade with General Campbell was inside of northern Iraq with us. They were contracting with Turkish dump trucks to bring Kurds into our camps, and we were feeding them with World Food Program excess amounts. Louisiana.
I remember we had the well there, They drilled the well, tested the water with all the spigots.
That's
We
right.
went out there, and here was a woman washing her hair, a lady washing the baby, and we had to give them basic. You don't do this.
No.
We had to give them basic
Water.
sanitation instruction.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. There was I remember that well we dug for the water in that camp. There was a green generator pump that some Iraqi farmer wanted to buy. He was some administrator from the government of Iraq, and he goes, "Oh, that well, we can have water for all these tomatoes." I remember we had a guy from Kansas City. He was an American Airlines jet mechanic or something. I remember he had a Rolex watch. Here he was in northern Iraq with a $10,000 Rolex watch. And his whole job was to secure the pump, guard the pump, make sure the pump pumped enough water to... We'd set up plumbing above the ground with spigots every 4 or 5 feet. And people would come and get buckets of water and haul them off to their tents. And I remember looking at that guy in the face, and he asked me, he said, "How much does he want for this?" And I go, "What do you want?" "If we leave, he wants to buy this." He goes, "I'm not sure we can do that, but I don't think we'll take this back with us. I think it's $50,000. And I said, "Kam staš $1,000 američki?" And the guy goes, $50,000. And he wasn't surprised. It was like, okay, I'll be back. Okay, he left. I don't know. I never saw him again, but we may have made a sale there.
So how long were you in northern Iraq?
Was it 3 months, 2 months? It wasn't that
Yeah.
long, Joe.
Because we had the food distribution and all
We
that.
had food, and we had the people coming and going, and we did a little bit of reconnaissance too, because some of the villages, in order to get them to leave, Saddam had just flown over them with a 50-gallon barrel of nerve agent with a quarter-pound stick of dynamite attached to it. And they used to just helicopter over these villages, go uphill of it, light the fuse, and drop that drum, and it would either explode before it hit the ground, and nerve agent would roll over the village, or it would roll down the mountain towards the village and blow up on the way. And the people were scared, and I looked at 2 villages on a mission for General Campbell with my driver, and they were just empty. They weren't really destroyed. They needed the power lines blown up, and they needed a pump for the well. And pretty sure about 1,000 people went back to one village, and only about 200 went back to another out of Camp 3. Okay, that's all we could get out of reconstruction for those villages. But I mean, that was the point, was to get them to go home. And Dahuk was a problem.
We set up the security zone, the no-fly zone, told Saddam.
We did. But that wasn't really our doing as civil affairs guys, but you know, we didn't want him dropping nerve agent back on his Kurds, and we didn't want any nerve agent, and so he knew if he dropped nerve agent on the Americans, we would have retaliated. And we'd already turned Iraq into the Stone Age pretty much, but the Republican Guards had all their shit. We didn't hurt them that badly, Joe. The reason we made the move, the reason we took them on the ground, the 100-hour war, was because we had turned Iraq, the entire month of January of 1990, we turned Iraq into the Stone Age. We hit every civilian target, and then some civil affairs guy goes, you know, we got to leave something, guys. We can't just do this. So, okay, the Republican Guard, those 6 divisions are all in northern Kuwait. In February, we started attacking them from the air. Joe, in 1 week, we lost 58 airplanes. And that's when the Air Force went, hey, Army, hey, we lost a B-52, and they ain't making B-52s anymore. Not just ours, it was coalition aircraft. I don't know, I think we lost 30 and they lost 18. We lost some, Brits lost a Tornado or 2. The Saudis lost a couple F-15s, which they bought from us. And the Kuwaiti Air Force lost a couple. But the Republican Guards inside of northern Iraq, Saddam's forces there, they had Russian GA-6. They had good air defense weapons, okay? And our Air Force didn't want to go against them. And our Air Force doesn't like flying over the top of our units because we got real good air defense too. And if it's flying, it's dying, buddy. So our Air Force, the cowards, they, oh no, we lost 58 aircraft. Army, time for you to do your job. We've done all we can do, blah, blah, blah. So that's why we started the ground war, was the Air Force was taking too many hits. It was a very dynamic 6 months, it was. And I'm pretty sure we changed the nature of the Middle East in that time. Mm-hmm. Kind of wished I'd stayed there inside of northern Iraq with you. I bet I'd be pretty fluent in either Farsi or Arabic by now.
Well, I had a good time up there after we were helping people rebuild villages and all that.
Yep. I'm sure I would have done well with that. Kind of what I did in Bosnia. With that one village, it started, they say it went on to be 27 after a while. Holt built a village. Well, how did he do that?
Okay,
well,
Nate, you were called up for Bosnia. What did you do in Bosnia?
In Bosnia, I was the UN High Commissioner for Refugees' military liaison. Mm-hmm. My job was to figure out how to help get Bosnian refugees back home. And we did that by going to meetings and figuring out how to keep the food supplies running. I was part of the Joint Civil Military Task Force in Sarajevo, whose offices were in the compound of the American Embassy there.
What was the problem in Bosnia?
Bosnia is a focal point where Islam and Slavic Europe and Latin Europe, it's where the Roman Catholics and the Greek Orthodox and the Turkish Muslims all meet. And it was a notionally communist country, but in '88 when Tito died, Tito was fair. He was fair, but he did not leave a successor. And he was part Serb, part Slovenian, so he had Latin roots and he had Serb roots in his family. And he made good decisions for the Yugoslavs. He really did. But when the Serbs took over, they decided it was going to be corrupt and everyone was just going to make money. When the Slovenians decided to leave Yugoslavia, before, the Slovenians are the country that border Austria and Italy and Croatia here on the south in Bosnia. The Slovaks said, fuck you, we're going to be our own country. We're going to join Europe. We're going to be part of the Western European Union. So the Serbs said, no, you're not. This was 88, 89. And they attacked. And being Serbs and lazy, it took them 6 months to get a mechanized division rolling towards the Slovaks. Well, the Slovaks make most of the plumbing for Western Europe, and the Italians and the Germans gave them anti-armor weapons. And there was the biggest anti-armor ambush that had happened since World War II, and they destroyed 150 Serb vehicles in like an hour. And the Serbs said, okay, fuck it. They're not really Serbs. We'll let them go be their own country. Well, at that point in time, the Croatians and the Bosnians said, fuck it, we're going to be our own country. Mm-hmm. And the Croats, good soldiers, but they started doing ethnic cleansing and they sent 500. They killed 500,000 and forced 500,000 Serbs out of the Krajina, which is part of Croatia's south. Like here's Slovenia and here's Croatia along the ocean, and this part of Croatia up here is called the Krajina, and it's nice farmland. It's good. They forced all those 500,000 Serbs into Banja Luka and that area of Bosnia that was Serb, because Bosnia is Serb, Catholic, and Muslim. Those 500,000 Serbs needed a place to live, so they started committing genocide and ethnic cleansing on the Bosnians and the Croats inside of Bosnia. The people of
Serbs
Herzegovina.
Are the Serbs, are they
Greek
they're Greek Orthodox?
They're Greek Orthodox.
Okay, okay.
And this is why we went to war there. Okay. The Greek Orthodox Serbs were getting help from the Russians and the Greeks, who hate the Turks, hate them, and the Brits. The Croats were getting help on a special forces level from the Italians, the Germans, and the French. The French had tried to put a stop to that war, but basically they just got drunk and watched them kill each other and just made reports. They didn't really do anything until the ethnic cleansing became so bad. Bosnia went from 4.5 million people to 1.5 million over 3 years. And those refugees were living in the subways in Germany, all over Europe. They were filling the schools with Bosnian kids, mostly in Germany, because a lot of the Croatia used to be part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and they're all Catholic, and they all speak German, as well as Serbo-Croat. Now, a person from Croatia, his real name is Croat. He's a Croat. But being Englishmen in Europe, they call them Krauts. That's where we get the word kraut. Okay? Not sauerkraut, it's from Croat. They make good soldiers. They're big, tall people. And they make really good soldiers. They do. And they don't like Serbs, and they don't like Muslims either, and they ain't going to be living in their towns. And it's a beautiful place. I've got pictures I took my mid-tour break in Croatia, and yeah, it's beautiful. But Bosnia became a cauldron. There was villages. You know what ethnic cleansing is, right? That's when one ethnicity, this village is Muslim, this village is Serb. It's always been that way. The Serbs come in here and they butcher all the men. Okay, they literally just take all the men out to a soccer field on the edge of town and kill them all. They rape all the women. And men under the age of 12 are generally spared. But that's not the end of it. Okay, that's not the end of it, because before there was Islam, and before there was Roman Catholicism, before there was Jews, there's Jews in that part of the world, before there was Greek Orthodox Serbs, there was a religion in Bosnia, in Yugoslavia. It's called Bogomil. And it's ancestor worship is what it is, Bogomil. And I've seen this. It bleeds over into all these religions, because when you go in, when you go in and you force all the other ethnicities out, mm-hmm. There's always cemeteries there. Okay? And you take the women that you've just gang raped and you make them open all the crypts, dig up all the bones. You dig up all the bones and you put them on a truck. Then you make the women leave. Then you take the bones up into the mountains and you just hide them. You bury them. You hide them. Because what? They always come back. They try to come back, but there's somebody else living in the house that their families lived in for 400 years. And the cemetery is fucking empty. The bones of their ancestors are gone. This is ethnic cleansing because of Bogomil people. This is the only religious thing the Bogomils do. It doesn't matter if they're Catholic or Greek Orthodox or Jew or Muslim. During Ramadan, they go to the cemetery and they sacrifice a goat and they barbecue it. They all get drunk and they stand in front of the crypts of their ancestors and talk to them. Well, what do you think, Grandpa? Do you think I should marry Ismail? she's pretty good, and I think maybe I should marry her. And then they listen. Maybe they hear him. They make decisions like that. The Catholic Yugoslavs, they go to the Catholic cemetery on Easter, and they have a feast, and they slaughter a goat and barbecue it, and they go to the crypt of their dad and go, hey Dad, you know, maybe I should marry Franyo. Should I marry Franyo? They get drunk and they talk to their aunt. I've seen this. All three religions I've seen this. Muslims do it during Ramadan, Catholics do it during Easter, Greek Orthodox do it during Greek Orthodox Easter, which is on a different weekend, okay? So they all have these cemeteries, and they go talk to the dead, get drunk and talk to the dead. That's what they are. They're Bogomil. You know, they mean, yeah, I'm Catholic. All right, fucking Bogomil. He's a drunk. The Yugoslavs are fucking alcoholics. All the Europeans are alcoholics. So, you ask what went wrong with Bosnia. Well, ethnic cleansing went on for 3 years. And they all left. If you had a degree, if you were a machinist or a diesel mechanic or a dentist or a doctor, or you left, okay, and you went to Germany, and because the Germans are socialists and they're generous people and they have a history, they couldn't just force them out at bayonet point. And really what made NATO want to go into Bosnia, this is horrible to say, was soccer. They ran out of subway space and they started having to open up tents on the soccer fields in the town. Mostly in Italy, a lot of them. And this was just not going to be allowed. Joe, I'm not kidding you. It was soccer. They go, well, we can't play because there are these fucking Bosnians in tents on the soccer field. You got to go put this down. For the first time in history since World War II, the German army deployed outside of their boundaries. They were with us when we went into Bosnia. Okay? Their special forces, their Grenzentruppe, had been in there for 4 or 5 years, helping the Croats. The Greeks and the Russians had been in there for 4 or 5 years, helping the Serbs. The Turks, and this is really important, Joe. You know, wars cost money. Who do you think paid the Turks to be there? Not the Turks, they ain't got no money. The Saudis paid, and the people of Abu Dhabi paid, and the people of Yemen and Bahrain. They paid for the Turkish special forces to jump into Sarajevo and teach what was left of the Bosnians to crawl on their bellies, and they airdropped arms and food and medical supplies into Sarajevo, and they started pushing back. They started winning because they had more money than and they were more politically active. They were ready to fight. They'd been pushed out of their homes. Okay? Fuck it, we fight or we die, and we got money and we got weapons. These Serbs are going to fucking die. They started pushing back on the Serbs. They started pushing back on the Croats. And these are good soldiers. At that point in time, the Serbs had 100 tanks. Around Sarajevo, everybody wanted Sarajevo, the prize, okay? Sarajevo had ski resorts and big buildings and good water supply. It actually had a good industrial company called Energoinvest. Energoinvest is the Halliburton of the communist world. Energoinvest makes drill pipe and drill bits and heat exchangers and all the shit you need, drilling rigs to drill for oil. And they do have a moderate amount of oil in Bosnia, mostly coal and steel. They have the steel and the coal so they can make the iron to make these oil field stuffs. And they sold it all over the communist world. China, Russia, they bought Energoinvest. And it all's headquartered in Sarajevo. And you know where they send their children to school? These Energoinvest executives? The University of Tulsa. No, it's not funny. One of them came to my house, children. They said I'm supposed to come here and Thank you for helping us in Bosnia. Okay. I'm happy to have obliged. How's it going back there? It's all better. Yeah, got it under control. Got rid of the Serbs out Sarajevo. But Clinton was in power, and there were 100 tanks on the perimeter of Sarajevo. And once a day, every other tank would lob a shell in the Sarajevo.
These tanks were from...
They were T-59s. They were...
Who had these tanks?
The Serbs. But they were made in Bosnia. The Bosnians make tanks, helicopters, nuclear reactors. This is not what you think, Joe. They have paved roads, dammed electricity, satellite dishes. These are not stupid people. They're drunks. They're hateful. They make their own weapons. They make their own mines. They are miners. They're metallurgists. They know how to make shit, okay? Unlike us, we gave up that. But they didn't. They know it. So, yeah. I want to go back there someday. I will, I think, to see it. At least the beaches in Croatia. Yeah, okay. There's me in the barracks in Sarajevo. We lived in the Turkish barracks. Remember that guy that killed Archduke Ferdinand?
Yes.
Princip? That looks out on the Bosna River, and behind that is the bridge that Archduke Ferdinand was on. They call it Princip Most. Princip Most. Most means bridge in Serbo-Croat and Russian. It means bridge in Russian too. And it was, this is Sarajevo. This is a tip. Oh, I know what this is. Where is it? Okay. Sarajevo was a sniper war too. During the war, it was, this is what was left of the 1984 Olympic Stadium. That's what we used as our central camp inside of Bosnia. There's a picture of Sarajevo. There's my dentist friends.
Oh, tell me about these two guys.
Okay. These two guys.
These two guys.
Yeah. Okay. This is, I can't remember their names. This guy's from Pennsylvania. He's a dog and cat doctor. And this guy is a professor of poultry science, veterinary medicine at the University of Arkansas.
The guy on the left is from Arkansas.
Yeah, but he's dead. He's dead now. I do know that. He is the guy that helped turn Tyson into this giant chicken breeding conglomerate, okay? And you don't know, it takes a lot of chemicals and drugs to keep 1 million chickens alive in one building. Guess where he went? After he was in Bosnia, he went back to Arkansas for a couple of years. Then he got a contract to go to China and do for the Chinese what he had done for the Bosnians. But he got sick in China. We don't know from what. From the food, from working with all these Chinese chickens that are all crammed into one building. And anyway, I slept with those two guys for, I guess about 6, 7 months. Yeah, 180 days. And I kind of got bored with what I was doing, and I went on them with a couple missions. And the one mission we went on, the Yugoslav people are sort of mildly capitalist. They kept, all farms were private, but protein was controlled by the state. So, like, they had giant stone barns out in the country on top of the mountains, and these dudes would get called out for diseases that would break out in these barns. I got to go with them for about a week on this. There was a big stone barn about 50 miles north of Sarajevo that created, goats. It was goats. It created goat meat for a lot of Sarajevo. And their front end loader had broken down, and they couldn't get the shit out efficiently out of the cement floor of the barn. So the hooves on the goats were getting infected and falling off. They were really sick goats. So these guys went out there and figured it out and ordered some copper sulfate so they could run the goat. They're running out of chemicals too. You have to walk the goats through this trough, cement trough, so that the copper sulfate would kill the bugs in their hooves from too much shit in there. But then they needed 2 front end loaders small to get the shit out of the barn. You couldn't do it by hand. You just couldn't. And they actually got 2 ditch witches bought by our State Department and delivered up there. I mean fast. This happened within a week. This was like, State Department, this sounds like a great mission. We got money for that. Boom. And so we saved, I don't know, 3,000 or 4,000 goats. And that meant about 60 goats a week, 100 goats a week could go to Sarajevo and be butchered for protein. It was good. There were giant stone barns full of sheep. There were trout farms, and they couldn't do much with the trouts, but yeah, that's what they did. They're civil affairs guys. And in real life, this one's a practicing veterinarian, and this one is a professor of veterinary medicine. You don't find a lot of those in the regular Army.
Yes.
Now look at this. Look at these women. This is Mostar. Okay.
This is where?
Mostar.
Mostar.
That's the Mostar Bridge where people jump over into the water every spring. Look at those women. Look how beautiful they are. Mm-hmm. All these Bosnian girls look like that. Oh my God. There were no fat ones, I'll tell you. Oh my God, they were good looking. That's the idiot with the dachshunds. That's my bunk. Sean Bell. Blah, blah, blah. This is a bridge outside of Turnovo. What is this? What is that? I can't remember. It just looks so horrible. And this is a... Oh. This bridge got shelled. See that? That bridge got shelled, and they built a Bailey Bridge over the top of it.
I thought that was a Bailey Bridge.
It is. But the bridge got shelled. So it wasn't bad. You could do it if you ran one semi at a time. And that's just fog, and this is just dudes. I think that's a French guy in the blue beret. And this is me ready to go home. I look like an idiot. This is, I don't know. This is Mostar here. This is the bridge. This bridge is famous. In the spring, men jump off that bridge into the water to prove their manhood. It used to be made out of stone, but it got destroyed during the war.
What's on each side of this bridge?
One side is Bosnian Muslim, and one side is what they call Herzegovina. It's
which side is which?
Catholic. Herzegovina. I think this is the Catholic part here.
This
the
side?
left, yes.
Okay,
see, you can almost see the. Can you see the minarets?
That's the Catholic side, and this is the Islamic side.
Yeah. See the minarets?
Yes.
Or are those? I don't know. One of those. No. Those are the. Those hold the. Those are trestles that hold the wire
river is
up.
that? What river is that?
That, I believe, is the Bosna.
And that's
Bosna.
And what's the name of this town?
Mostar. Mostar.
Mostar.
Yeah.
How long were you in Bosnia?
Just 6 months.
What's your most vivid memory of Bosnia?
There was a village called Baš C, and they said it was covered in mines, and they didn't want to rebuild it. It's stuck into Bosnian Serbia. It's beautiful. It's up in the mountains. It's just beautiful. And they had a trout farm there, and we were having trouble getting trout in Sarajevo. So I went up there with the UNHCR, and there were these mine signs all over the place. And there was nobody in this village, and it was just, there's only like 30 homes there. Then there was this trout farm facility that went up into the mountains there. And the Yugoslav army had built a spring. I walked through that village, and I realized it was all a lie. It was all bullshit. There were no mines there. I walked all over it. Very carefully, Joe. But I had had, some training on local mines, and I had a Bosnian who was from that area with me, and then I had another Bosnian who was a UNHCR employee, spoke English. We walked through that village, and they said, there are no mines here, but we need to get these 28 families back up into here. Can you help us? So I said, let's walk through the whole village, and you show me if there's no mines here. And there were mine symbols everywhere and danger, but it was all bullshit.
Why?
The Serbs didn't want them to come back. They wanted to keep that trout farm for themselves, okay? Mm-hmm. So I went back and I started a budget with the UNHCR. And the UNHCR went, if we can get these 28 families back up there, and these were big families, there were like 300 people. They're all living here in Sarajevo, and all they know how to do is trout farm. They're just worthless. If we can get them back up there, we can make room for 300 more people to come into Sarajevo. And I said, you can replicate that across the entire border, I think. There was a border area, which they called the front line, which there were a lot of mines at one time. Mm-hmm. So that's when they started getting really big on mine removal. I went in there and I made a budget. I said, if I have $285,000 worth of local construction material, we can have the material to rebuild Bosch Sea. And we'll need transport to get these people up there every day. There's water. I said, there's water. I tested the plumbing. There's water. It all works off of gravity. It's spring-fed water. It's clear water. I've drank it. And it was relatively it's outside this Serb village, but it was up the mountain road about 5 miles. And I always remember having a meeting with the Serb mayor of that town. And I said to him, do you know Bosch Sea? And my interpreter told him that in Serbo-Croat. He said, oh, yeah, jestili muslimanski selo. And I went, muslimanski selo? He says, it's a Muslim village. I go, it's a fish farmer village. Translate that. He goes, well, that's true. They didn't have a mosque. There's no mosque. Well, that's true. Do you think it would be smart for them to make fish again? He goes, yes. Needs to be rebuilt, cleaned up. Yes. Someone shot it up. Someone set half of it on fire. Hell, there was a war.
How do you spell the name of that town?
Bosch Sea. B-A-S-C-I. And the C has a little hat over it. You say Bosch Sea. Bosch Sea in Serbo-Croat. It's in the department of Trnovo, T-R-N-V-O, which is a canton. They have counties. They call them cantons. Mm-hmm. Canton of Trnovo, T-R-N-V-O, Trnovo. That's where they made the movie Return to Navarone or something like that. They made the movie there, I swear to God. And there's a scene there in that movie where it looks like it's supposed to be a Nazi armored unit, and they took a bunch of Serb tanks and Russian tanks and just painted swastikas on them. Mm-hmm. It's just stupid. It's a stupid movie. But I like the Gregory Peck movie, The Guns of Navarone, much better than the Return to Navarone, or Guns of Navarone 2.
Mm-hmm. So you come back home.
Yep. Come back home from Bosnia. And I'm told that our mission has changed, and we are now a Spanish and Portuguese unit. Yeah. And we're going to do a lot of counter-drug. So luckily my mother spoke Italian, and there's very similar languages. So I made the needle move on Spanish and got sent to Panama and Honduras and Costa Rica and El Salvador.
What'd you do down there?
We have a Show the Flag program we do in peacetime where we drill water wells and build schools and repair bridges and do infrastructure projects. And we send guard medical units down there for what are called medical readiness training exercises. And I was the guy who coordinated with the local villages and took the initial movements of soldiers out there and introduced them to the alcalde. And whenever there was a problem, I mediated problems with the locals and the American Army. I liked the medical readiness training exercises. Those were very good. And they were interesting. And we couldn't do much. We were only there for 3 days normally in these villages. One day a woman walked up and she had her eye hanging out on her cheek. This was in Honduras. We had a Honduran doctor with us too. And he made her an appointment in Tegucigalpa. And I always remember, she said, how am I going to get to Tegucigalpa? You show the bus driver this and we'll get a free ticket to Tegucigalpa. Oh, says, well, my man is gone. My man would have took me, but I don't have a man now. And I said to her, I said, consigue un otro. I said, get another. And everybody just laughed. Everybody just laughed. And the old woman even laughed. I saw her eye jiggling on her cheek. Oh, fuck, okay. But I remember we weren't supposed to carry people in our Jeeps, in our Humvees, and I was at the bottom of this mountain and trying to come up to the village, and there's these 3 old ladies trying to get up to the clinic. We're going to have the free clinic. I put them in the back. One of them had a baby. I put them in the back of my Humvee, and I actually got in the back with them. And I said, go up to the village. You're not supposed to do that. I don't care. Get up there. We got up to the top of the village, and I got out, and there was a fucking 2-star general up there watching me unload these women out of the back of my American Humvee. Sorry, sir, they look like they were going to die in the heat. And he went, okay. Nothing much was said, but the colonel commander of the local medical readiness training group said, you're lucky you didn't get fucking shot. I told my guys not to give them free rides. They were 5 miles down the mountain. Okay, come on. You guys, taking them all day to get here. It was 100 degrees out there. General didn't mind.
So when did you retire?
God, when did I retire? I know I didn't get any money until I turned 60. And I'm 63 now. God, when did I retire? Oh, I remember. They asked me to go back to Iraq. I remember there was no place for me to drill at the 486th. And they let me drill up here for a while. And every once in a while they want me to go back there. And then they let me drill up here for a while. And then Bush Jr. was going to go back to Iraq. So I said, well, been in the Army 23 years. Not sure this is a good expenditure of my life and funds. So that would have been, we went back, Bush Jr. attacked Iraq, 2003.
I think so, yeah.
I think so. So the general said, well, you're going to go with us or you're going to retire. And I went, nah, I've been in 23 years. Been in 4 combat zones. It's enough. So be it, 2003.
Would you join the Army again?
I probably would. I would think maybe the Navy, but I don't think so. I'm more of a people person. The Navy guys are all wrench turners and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
1 minute left.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Well, Mark, this has been an excellent interview.
Well, thank you. It's been good seeing you again, Joe.
I want to thank you for your service. Thank you for the interview.
Well, thank you. I hope someone gets to see this someday and learn something.
And again, today is April 28th, 2021.
It is.
My name is Joe Todd. This has been an interview with Mark Holt in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Holt, owner and president of Mark Holt Painting Contracting.
There.